Carlson. I'm running for Congress in Michigan's 7th Congressional District.
Marvin, welcome.
Thank you.
What are your views on climate change, energy sources, and has the Gulf oil spill changed your opinion?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question because 2 years ago I actually got on a ship and wanted to find out for myself what was happening in Antarctica. I got on a National Geographic survey ship and actually we did a little exploring in the Antarctica Peninsula and the penguin rookeries and kind of determined and I was a part of a team that did some survey work on the flora and fauna down there because I wanted to check out the claims, for example, on Gore on the breakup of the ice shield in Antarctica. And what I discovered was that the Ross ice shield did in fact break away, a good portion of it, but it didn't disappear and it didn't melt away. It's going around the Antarctica Peninsula in a clockwise rotation because that's the current, the way the currents operate there, and in 10, 15 years we would be right back where it was. So Al Gore in his Inconvenient Truth movie claimed that that was an example of global warming and the disappearance of or the significant reduction in the Ross ice shield. Well, in fact, what he didn't tell you was still there. It was just floating around in the Antarctic Ocean. The penguins were having a hard time on their nesting rookeries, not because it was too wet or it was too warm, but it was too cold. They had too much snow, and there was going to be a serious decline in the Gen 2 penguin population because they were unsuccessful that year in hatching young. But curiously enough, it was because it was too cold, not too hot. I believe that global warming is myth. I believe that it's an attempt by extreme environmentalists to scare folks into a reduction in our general standard of living, an attempt by, again, the extreme environmentalists to justify, for example, the U.S. giving up part of its sovereignty to a UN climate change administration that would limit industrial output and carbon emissions throughout the world and here in the U.S. And I think that's actually the most important consequence of this environmental movement, the move toward a United Nations control of our economic resources and our choices. And I see it as just antithetical to what this country is and the exceptionalism of this country. So I'm very concerned. And cap and trade, which Mark Schauer, our opponent in November, voted for, is an example of implementation of that world order, as it were. This attempt to limit point source carbon emissions based on, again, flawed science. The presumption is that CO2 is a greenhouse gas, and it is a greenhouse gas, but doesn't have any significant impact. The last 10 years of temperature data, for example, have shown that, in fact, we have cooler temperatures over the last 10 years. Variability in temperature over the history of the world is considerable. In Antarctica, the place I was just referring to, there were mammals living there and actually trees. There's the fossil record shows that. So the world many eons ago was considerably warmer, certainly in the Triassic period. During the dinosaur times, basically what we had is a world of jungle. and the temperatures were considerably warmer than they are now, and it's cyclical. And so the presumption somehow that we are ourselves as a human race changing the ecology of the world in some way that's irretrievable or not, and somehow is leading to the destruction of our earthly existence is just simply just wrong-headed. And I believe it's an ideological commitment to a collectivist perspective that I simply reject. Now, I've spoken a long time on climate change. There were some other issues.
Energy sources, and has the Gulf oil spill changed your opinion?
Energy, I believe that we need to move away from dependency on foreign sources of oil, for example. Even though Saudi Arabia, Iran, and other countries, for the most part, export to the European countries, they still determine the world market and the price of the world on the world scene. I believe we have to drill domestically. Opportunities in Anwar and in the oil shale areas of western United States. Right now, for example, here right in Michigan, we sit over the top of one of the biggest natural gas domes in the Midwest, yet we don't take advantage of it. I think, for example, when Consumers Power suggested that we, or not suggested, they advocated for and sought a permit for a coal-fired new generating plant, that why not, rather than go for coal, which you have to transport from 500 miles away, let's build a pipeline, tap into our natural resource right here in Michigan, and put together a gas-fired generating plant. And that makes a lot of sense. And if we're concerned about not only carbon emissions, but other sulfuric acid discharge and that sort of thing from coal-fired operations, that's the way we can actually make a difference in terms of environmental pollution and use local resources.
All right, very good.
All right.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.